All right, this is Eric Weedon with TrueLark. We are excited today to have Dr. Len Tau on the show. Dr. Len is one of the top leaders in the dental consulting industry. He has dedicated his professional life to improving dentistry, both for patients and other dentists. A former practice owner, Len has trained thousands on dental growth. He has also been in reputation marketing, leading the dental division at Birdeye, a reputation marketing platform, and hosting the popular Raving Patients podcast. Len recently authored the book Raving Patients in the newly released 100 plus tips to 100 5-star reviews in 100 days. Welcome to the show, Len.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and my gosh, you haven't been busy at all. Is there anything else that we should know that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, when I retired from dentistry in the end of 2022, so I'm no longer clinical, I live in Florida now, living a great life down here. I decided to go into the education space as well. So now I have a couple of events each year. I guess my premier event was actually last September in Delray Beach, Florida, called Supercharge Your Dental Practice. It was an amazing event, 218 people, 33 sponsors, 17 speakers. And then we're doing it again in September of 24 this year in Scottsdale, Arizona. We have 13 speakers. We're expecting over 300 people at the event. So I've decided to transition from clinical career. Obviously, I teach marketing. I'm a speaker. I'm a podcaster. I'm an author. But now I've moved into the event space, and I'm putting on my own events now.
Great. Fantastic. And we'll put that in the show notes, and I'll hand it off to Liz here for a question. But for people to find out about that event, where would you direct them?
They can go to superchargeyourdentalpractice.com. Again, it's superchargeyourdentalpractice.com. And at the end, if they want, I can give out like a code to save $100 on registration.
Oh, great. Thank you.
That's great. Okay. So I have been following you ever since I came to TrueLark, and I've been in the dental space for many years. And so you're an influencer as well as a thought leader. And I've kind of watched other people just starting out in their career that would like to build their personal brand. So what advice would you have for someone that would be trying to kind of move in the direction you have in your career that's right now, a doctor at a practice?
So, I get that question a lot, and it's hard to fully answer that question. We could probably do a 3-hour session just on that. One thing it takes dedication, it takes hard work, it takes passion. And when in 2010, when I started realizing that I did not want to be a clinical dentist forever. I know dentists who are 80 years old and are still practicing. I decided I didn't think 50 years old, but I knew I wasn't going to be a dentist at 65 or 60. I just happened to retire younger than I thought. But it was something that I decided to focus on when I realized that I did not want to practice dentistry for such a long time. So I work hard. I'm a hustler. I'm a go-getter. I'm a connector. I'm an influencer. I was able to connect with people in the industry that were the right connections. Obviously, I sold my company to Birdeye as well. But it took a combination of all these things to allow me to be on stage, which is a huge part of what I do, and teach things. So I think, I created a network for myself that allowed me to do various things in the industry that allowed me to get out of clinical practice. A lot of dentists reach out to me because they feel trapped in the operatory where they can't find other things to do, or they have no way of doing other things. I have to be honest with you. I work hard, but I was very lucky. I found the right things. I got into the reputation space extremely early back in 2010, 11, and 12, when reviews were not what they are now. And I basically threw a bullseye and found something that was going to be strong beginning then, but is even more important now to a practice. And that's the reason why I've been able to get out and do other things, is because I hit the target very early in my career. But it's hard work, it's dedication, it's passion, it's finding what your why is very early and focusing on that. When I help practices with increasing the revenue. I help them with reviews. I help them with marketing. I help them with case acceptance. It's all business related topics. So I am very narrow in the sense. I don't really work with clinical companies, okay? Because I'm not a clinical dentist anymore. I work with companies that will help me do what I need to do, which is help practices grow. So I found my why and my niche very early, and I've stuck to that.
That's interesting. So as far as dental marketing, I started writing for the early dental websites, 2007, 2008. And at that time, some dentists didn't even have a website. And so you've also kind of watched those changes. And how do you see dental marketing going, specifically digital marketing? And how is that changing for the practices that you guide and consult with?
Well, marketing a practice now is a must. You have to practice. You have to market your practice in order to be successful. The more money you spend in marketing, if you partner with the right people, the greater ROI you're going to get, the more you're going to want to spend to bring more patients into the practice. So I truly believe that if you do not market your practice nowadays in a digital format, so having a great website, having a great reputation, doing some AdWords to be visible online, having social media, doing ads on social media. If you don't have the omni-channel approach to marketing, it's not going to work and you're going to end up wasting money. So you have to go all in. I always say, in order to market your practice, you have to have a commitment to market. It's nowhere in between. You have to go all in. Okay. And that's what's important. If you go all in with your chips, your marketing will be successful. And I truly believe, again, like I said, that in order to be a practice that's growing at a decent clip every year, you're going to have to spend money on marketing. And I'm not talking about marketing like insurance marketing, which is joining a PPO and taking the discount on the PPO. That's a form of marketing. People don't look at it that way. They said, yeah, I'm 30%, I'm taking a 30% hit. So if I'm doing $1 million, I bring in $700,000 from the insurance company. That is the marketing that you did to bring the patients into your practice. You took that hit. I'd rather you spend the money on marketing and bring in fee-for-service practices that pay your full fees.
Okay, so say
Gotcha.
that a brand new practice, say with a smaller budget, they're just trying to build up. Say, so I've worked with many startups and small teams, and often I've been a marketing department of one. So what would you tell, a practice starting out that doesn't have a huge budget? Where should they focus their efforts, would you say?
100%. You have to have a website, a great website, because that's your marketing hub. It's where you're going to send everybody to. So you've got to have a great website. It looks good. It's got to be able to do some SEO. You got to be ranking on the organic rankings, but you also have to have a consistent presence online. We call that listing management. And you have to have online reviews that show that people want to come into the practice. Those three things are kind of the foundation to be able to do any other marketing anyway. And honestly, the most important foundation is online reviews, because if you don't have online reviews, people aren't going to want to come into the practice anyway. So that's the most important foundation. If you don't set the foundation properly, your marketing will crumble. So that is like what you have to do in the very beginning, and you don't have to spend a lot of money doing it. It's not like you have to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to do it. But you have to find a website company that will provide you with a really good content. You don't have to do the content yourself. You have to get a website that you own the domain. So make sure you own the domain, and a website company that will basically update it on a monthly basis or so to make sure the content's current, which will help you with SEO. And then you have to add reviews and sprinkle on reviews on there. And that's the foundation that you need to have. And it doesn't cost a lot of money, like I said.
So so many practices I've noticed that falls to, say, the office manager. If they don't have a dedicated marketer, they don't have an outside agency or consultant. So how successful have you been in helping, say, someone that doesn't have a marketing background in taking these things on and managing, getting the reviews? And I would assume, so if they don't have a platform like you, they would have to respond to negative reviews, right?
Yeah, look, I mean, I've signed up close to 10,000 dental practices for Birdeye over the last 10 years. I'm there 10 years in September this year. So I work with a lot of practices to help them improve their practice online to be able to market their practice. So what I teach here and what I talk about here is what I teach in real life, and it's who I am. In order to market your practice, you have to have a steady flow of reviews. You're talking about $300 a month for a platform that's going to allow you to do that. You're not talking about an expensive platform. You're not going to break any marketing budgets with that. But finding a website company, and there's many of them out there, that's going to provide you with something that is going to be movable if you need it to be moved to another company, unique content, not templated content. These are all things that you should be looking for in a provider that will allow your online presence to grow. So I personally have been very successful in getting practices to grow because I talk more about case acceptance and changing the way you discuss money with patients, using software like TrueLark. TrueLark is something I used in my practice for a very long time. I talk about it to this day in my seminars, in my case acceptance workshop, because it's a great way to get better case acceptances by having your patients, work through the flow when they're not in the practice and help book appointments. These are all things that I've been very successful at getting practices to do. And all it does is it takes introduction to what these products can do for your practice, and then getting the dentist to purchase it, and it kind of just works on its own.
Yeah, we have a multi-practice group right now that just adding a link to share the financing options increase their case acceptance. And what's interesting is that it was more of a conversation starter. It's not necessarily they didn't sign up for the financing, but it got it in their mind. And then they asked about it when they came into the office. So it's kind of interesting to see those types of specific use cases, for automation software. So do you think that, in our experience and in our field, with our patient communications, we have seen that dentists who you could argue aren't traditionally the first ones to jump on the technology bandwagon, though they need to now. Do you see them more opening to this? I'm assuming when they come to you, they're sold. They know they need to automate. They know that they're going to fall behind if they don't build in these processes. So do you see that, the awareness of that growing?
Yeah, well, look, there's a lot of people who reach out to me that have no idea what we do, have no idea the effects, of automation. They're so used to just asking a patient to write a review or sending their own. I mean, there are still practices that don't use regular communication tools, like literally to send text reminders and email reminders. They're still using phone calls and handwritten cards, which is so old school. It's ridiculous nowadays. So I think there's definitely a big push towards getting into the 21st century, but there's still many practices that don't. And if you're listening to this and you're one of those practices, you need to look yourself in the mirror and see where you want to take your practice. If you want to grow, you've got to get into the 21st century with these things. You don't have a choice nowadays. It's the expectation from the patients. A patient isn't going to want to come to you as a new patient if you have an older practice, no technology, no website, no presence online, no social media. That's what drives the new patients to the practice. And eventually, if that happens, your practice is going to go from here. It's going to go down to here because you're losing everything because you're not bringing the new patients into the practice. The new patients are the lifeblood to the practice. When I hear practices not accepting new patients, I kind of chuckle inside. That's not the way you want to grow, in my opinion. You should always be accepting new patients, but you have to present to the patient that you have open arms, that you want to bring the new patients into the practice. That is a huge part of growing your practice, is recognizing that you need to do these things to bring them in.
So in your time consulting, do you see that your client base are younger, earlier in, building their career and building their practice? Or, have you seen any change in that, in kind of the state of their practice among your client base?
So I don't want to say it's younger. I think there's still a lot of older people who do reach out to me, because they're here, they hear about something, they're old school, they just have a website, but they still want to keep growing their practice. In order to grow, they need to do things that are going to allow the practice to grow. And people know that in order to do that, you have to have reviews. And that's why they reach out to me. They may not understand what we do or how we do it, but they know reviews are a big signal to grow your practice. And if you're a practice that is getting reviews online, you're going to rank higher and you're going to be more visible. And that's how you bring the more patients into the practice. So look, the majority of people I speak with, they're definitely aware of what we do. They're on the younger side, they're new practices, but there's still a tremendous number of people who have no understanding of the internet, but know they need to do something. I just signed up a 78-year-old man who doesn't even use a computer, but he knows that he doesn't want to stop practicing yet, and he needs patients to come in. So we signed up for the software. I mean, we feel a need, and if somebody finds value in what we do, they want to sign up. We're not for everybody, but if you want to grow, you need to implement these tools into your practice.
Okay, let's turn our attention to case acceptance, because that's another one of your specialties. So in addition to what we already talked about, what do you think are some misconceptions among in the dental industry about how to improve your case acceptance rate?
Well, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that the doctor should not be involved. And I am very much the opposite. I was very much involved in the case acceptance part. I was the one doing the financial part of it. I was the one doing the treatment presentation. It was me. It was all about me. I was very good at selling, and I figured if I can do it better, if nobody can do it better than me, then I'm going to keep doing it. So for my entire career, once my office manager left in 2008, I took on that role in my practice, and I never gave it up because I could find nobody that was better than me at it. The patients trust the dentist. They want the dentist to give them the presentations on what things cost and what they need. The problem is most dentists aren't comfortable doing it. So I think a common misconception is you have to pass it off to your team to do. I would say I would teach that the doctor should be doing it. That's a big difference in kind of how I operate, is I take it on for the doctor side. And that's one big difference.
How receptive is that message out there? And do you find pushback in people's recommending or saying that they find success other ways? What are you hearing out there? Because I have my own little personal anecdote on that exact topic that I'll share in a second.
Yeah, of course, there's naysayers out there. But if people fully buy into the reason I was successful, and a lot of it has to do with the marketing, that I was self-taught in marketing. I was really good at marketing my practice, and I did things on my own and case acceptance and treatment presentation and those types of things. If you buy into my success and you buy into how I do things, then you buy into what I teach. If you're a naysayer and you don't want to improve, or you don't believe a dentist should be doing those things, then you look elsewhere to someone who's going to more align with what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's really interesting what you're saying about the doctor being the one to, really engage with the patient in regards to, for me, kind of the why behind the care plan and what it's going to be and the financial investment and why that would make sense. In my own experience, I have two kids, and they both were going to the same pediatric dental practice for many years. One went up through ortho, braces, the whole thing. Second one's coming up. Went in for ortho consult, and I came in there, and as the parent, you're kind of in the background, you're in the waiting room, you go in, kind of check, is my kid doing okay, kid's ready, and then basically kind of get a nod, a wink, in a wave from the doctor, we're good to go. I go up to the front desk, and I'm presented with a very large investment proposition for ortho services. No explanation, just basically sign here and your deposit's due in 30 days. And I was really taken aback. I'm like, wait, what? How did this happen? Where did this come from? And I was actually really put off. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. No one explained to me, the why behind this, what we're doing, what the long-term outlook is, for this service. And we ended up getting a second consult and leaving that practice as a result of it. And it was a really poor experience from a parent patient perspective. And I can only imagine how different it could have gone, if somebody had taken an approach similar to yours.
Yeah, it's funny. I hear that a lot, and you lost their trust. And when you lose their trust in the practice, you have no other choice but to leave. It's the same reason why do patients write bad reviews? They don't trust the practice anymore. Something happened and they haven't gotten a resolution to it. So when somebody writes a bad review, they don't have trust with the practice, they leave. Same thing here. You lost trust, you left the practice. That's a huge part of what these things that are positive about marketing and reviews, you gain the trust of practices. I'll share with you a quick story about the ultimate trust that someone had with my practice. A guy called the practice up. This is back in 2012, maybe 13, long time ago, and said that I've chosen Dr. Tau as my dental care provider. I would like to speak to him about what I'm looking to come in for. So when that happens, and I spoke to new patients all the time, the team said to me, I think you need to call this patient back. I think he could be a big case. He goes on to tell me that he had an accident 5 years earlier and had his mouth completely reconstructed with implants, and he doesn't like the way it looks. So I said, fine, come on in. I'll put together a treatment plan for you, and you can decide if you want to move forward. He goes, no. I've already decided that you're going to be my dentist. We just need to figure out what it's going to cost. So he came in and he had a mess of a mouth. Whoever did the previous work did not do a good job. I did not tell him that, but it did not look good. And the treatment was about $36,000. And I told him, I presented it myself. I told him, this is what it is. I gave him his financial options. And he said to me, if I pay you cash, can you reduce the price? And I was like, cash? Sure. So I told him I'd give him a 10% discount with cash. He goes, I'll be right back. He goes out to his car, opens up his trunk, pulls out his suitcase, puts $36,000, $33,000 in it or so, puts a handcuff on his arm and walks back to my office, says, here's $33,000. When can we get started? He trusted me, which is why he ended up doing that. That is what trust does. When you don't have trust with your patients, they don't accept treatment, they leave the practice and they go somewhere else. That's how this whole thing operates.
And it's just a few minutes, right? If you've got your practice and just the education, I've always just thought, just take that extra minute and look at patient value and that, complete mouth reconstruction. Eric and I were talking to a potential client, and we were talking about case acceptance and financing. And she said, well, yeah, our clients, we use mortgage finance companies because of how, it's an investment. It's life-changing.
The investment, right.
To do it. So, it just seems like such a simple thing, but so many miss it. Like you were talking about trust. And a few years ago, I had paid for some cosmetic dentistry, and I don't think my insurance covered any of it. And, I sent them what I thought. 3 years later, they came back and said, oh, you have $500 in a credit. They hadn't even told me that money was sitting there. Do you want something else? And I said, are you kidding? You have $500 in mine that, I could have, like Eric, I could have spent it on my kids, mouths. But so I just thought, that was really arrogant of them thinking, I don't want that money. I don't even want to know that I have a credit there. So that I had that experience too. So as I've been sitting there in this conversation thinking that no practice owner needs to, or doctor needs to reinvent the wheel. There are formulas. There are workflows that have been proven again and again and again. You don't have to go figure it out anymore, especially with digital marketing. I mean, that's a science now. And so on your new book, can you give us just a sneak peek of some of those 100 tips to kind of whet someone's appetite for what they can find out in your book?
So speaking of the book is here. It's called 100 Plus Tips for Generating 100 5-star Reviews in Just 100 Days. The book is available on Amazon. If you want to get it, that's the way to purchase it. In terms of some ideas, simply, certain ways to ask patients. People always say to me, what's the proper verbiage to use? And the verbiage I recommend is something like, thanks for coming in today. We hope you had a great experience as always. Bring something personal into it. Just so you may be getting a message from us asking for some feedback about your experience. In fact, every single morning we celebrate our 5-star reviews that we got from the day before, and we would love to celebrate yours. So little verbiage nuances like that. Some unique ways using QR codes to some extent, different ways to market the reviews. There's a ton of tips in here. You know, asking the, you know, talking about patients doing you a favor. You know, there's you know, such things as using your television in the reception room to show your reviews, asking patients to write the reviews, being careful, but you can run a contest, but you have to be careful with how you position that. How to incentivize the practice team members, not the patient with writing reviews. So there's a lot of great tips in here, but I think ultimately what it is, it's about creating a reputation culture where everything that you do in the practice revolves around reputation and making it a place that people want to talk about online, which goes a long way into generating more 5-star reviews.
Yes, you definitely have the credibility because you did that exact thing with your own practice many years ago. So definitely I would encourage our listeners to get that book and you know, leverage all of Dr. Tau's experience. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Nope, nothing like this. I mean, if they have any questions, they can certainly reach out to me. I'm happy to give my contact information. It's all over the internet anyway, so it's not a problem that I share my email and my cell phone with people. But if they have any questions, they need any advice, they want to, you know, they want to pick my brain, as I like to call it, they can reach out to me. That's fine. My email is len@drlentau.com. So len@drlentau. My cell phone number, I'll give it, like I said, it's all over the internet. It's 215-292-2100. And I am uber responsive. I respond almost immediately as long as I'm not sleeping or giving a seminar or doing a podcast. It's hard for me to respond when I'm on a podcast. But those are 2 ways to get a hold of me. And the only other thing I would say is if you have any interest in learning more about my event, Supercharge Your Dental Practice, you can go to superchargeyourdentalpractice.com. It's in Scottsdale, September 27th and 28th. And it's on business, marketing, leadership, and financials part of the practice. So it's all business related stuff. And they can save $100 using the code RAVING, RAVING, at checkout.
That sounds great. Eric's in Scottsdale quite often. He may just swing by and say hello.
Yeah, and I can attest to Dr. Tau's responsiveness, and I have been lucky enough to catch one of his live presentations now a little bit over a year ago at one of the major association events in Southern California. And definitely, if you're listening to this and you have an opportunity, go. It'll definitely be worth it.
Well, I appreciate that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with everything. You got a really packed 2024, huh?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Yes, I'm quite busy. There's some things we didn't talk about, but yes, I have a very busy schedule.
Okay, then we'll have you on again in a few months.
Would love to. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Tau.
Thank you, Dr. Tau.